guys, in this terrifying review, we're going to be continuing our looks at the McFarlane toys. Clive Barker, this is the Tortured Souls Series 1, Figure 1, Agonistes. This is a fantastic figure to behold, but before we look at the figure itself, let's get some measurements. If you technically count to the top of his head, Agonistes is about 7 inches tall. However, as you can probably see, he's got the extensions coming out from his back, which takes the figure to a more whopping 10 inches tall. To also show you how he stacks up against some of the other Tortured Souls, let's bring in the previous figures that we looked at. Here's figure number 3, Lucidique. And here we have figure number 5, Venal Anatomica. Again, each one of them bring different things to the table, but kind of still sticking to a very core design. A lot of blacks and very, very reminiscent of the Cenobite designs that we would see from Hellraiser. Of course, I've already done the review of these two, so if you guys wanted to have a look at those and didn't have a look to check those videos out, by all means, maybe go have a look at those after this review. So here we have, again, Agonistes, which is really a spectacular looking figure. There's some assembly that's required when you get him out of packaging. Primarily these little, I say little, these mechanical limbs that are protruding out from his back have to be added. So let me basically show you how everything comes together. This flesh face, which we'll just untab for the time being, very carefully. Luckily, it's a softer rubber, so I'll show you this right now. Comes with this stretched out face, which, I mean, does look very much like what you would see from a Hellraiser movie. And there's the back of it. I love that they even colored the back of it, even though technically you would only see it from the back of the figure. But it looks like it is real human flesh, just stretched out. These little pieces here are the actual arms. Unpeg. So when you get them out of packaging, they're like this. This one you have to be a little bit more careful of because it's got a couple more parts to it. And again, this would just kind of tab into place as well. I'll just probably leave this one on. You want to get it around the crown that he is sporting, and it just slides down into the chute. And then you've got, again, this really neat looking setup. Let's go ahead and, you know what, we won't put the face on just yet because I want to show you the individual arms. So the arms are articulated, if you could actually believe it. There's a hinge here. Granted, there are noticeable screws. There's one there, there's one there, there's one there. But each of these are articulated, which is fantastic. And even like the top one here is a piston. So as you're moving it back and forth, you'll see that it'll come in and out of the piston here. I would stress still some caution when handling this, that you're not going to accidentally snap these. But it's really neat, the level of posability. And these also hinge outward too, so you can bring these a little further out. Of course, if you want to incorporate the face, these mechanical tentacles will actually have to be closer together. Then you've got this little, I want to say little, it's far from being little, these extra little appendages that hinge outward as well, that have this very nice decorative carving into the actual blade portion. It looks like it's really sharp. It's not a sharp plastic, so you shouldn't have anything to worry about. And loving, again, like these are hingeable. The other side, similar in nature to what you can hinge it at. There's a hinge there, and a hinge up at the top here, relying once again on a piston. And you can hopefully see a lot of really cool colors added here. Some silvers, some blacks, and they've dry brushed like a light silver on top of that as well. So if you want to kind of get everything together once again, want to bring these close, and then there's a peg there, and there. Same on the other side. And you're just going to take the holes of the flesh face and just very carefully peg those all in. Time is your friend, unless you're reviewing this and you have to hurry like I am. I'm going to try to be careful though. Just want to peg those into place. This would be a figure that would be a little difficult to bag away, so if you don't always have him on display, for example, I would say probably the first thing you would want to do is take the arms off. Well, of course, take the face off first. Take the face off, take the arms off, and bag those separately. I wouldn't bag it with this all attached to the figure. You know what? While we're actually looking at the arms, I also want to show you he's got a similar sort of extension arm that is attached to his back that you can hinge back and forth, and then there's 2 hinge points here, which has that same carved etching into the blade, and that hinges back and forth. So you can kind of get it so it's running around the side of the figure, because technically he doesn't really come with any sort of accessories other than those things that we've already looked at. Let's have a look at his face. What a fantastic looking face. Still kind of very reminiscent to a Chatterer. But I adore you. Crown of what looks like scissors and just spikes protruding themselves into the top flesh area of the head. A glorious sight to see. If something like this gruesome sight tickles your fancy, this would definitely tickle my fancy, and I can tell you it definitely does. Once again, you've kind of got the metal strappings that are pulling back the face portion of the, well, what's left of the face. But I just adore this crown. This doesn't have a lot of paint, though, that I almost think it looks better like this, that if they'd gone the same route of the coloring here, it would almost get lost in the mix. Instead, they kept it very uniquely silver to itself so that the rest of the colors don't kind of compete with it. Once again, you've got the stretched out human face. And he really, you know what, he kind of gives me the vibe of a samurai. I don't know if maybe a lot of that is because of the wide collar, the wide shoulder pads here, which are very soft rubber. The skirt, a lot of this just reads to me like a samurai warrior, if you know, if you want to look at it that way. He's adorned with all these blades, weapons, but they're strapped as opposed to being a handle. I don't know if they're more servicing as a decorative piece to the figure rather than something he's actually going to use, because unless he would use it maybe as a whip, which could inflict some serious damage. As you can see, that there's that blood caked all over the one blade. He's got a couple of those things as well running in the front, 2 to be exact, but again, they're strapped rather than actually having a handle. Of course, it's McFarlane, so you've got to have a ton of chains, and Agonistes has tons of chains all running down his back here. Nothing actually sticking into his flesh, rather seeming more decorative running out from the back of his armor. And armor is about the best way I can describe it. It's got some really intricate looking details, not only to the shoulder pads, the arms. Again, it's a nice decorative front area of the front skirt here. And you've got the exposed torso. If, for example, of course they toss around the idea of new Hellraiser movies, there's apparently one in the works. This, I kind of dig in the front here that this would work very well for a new updated take on Pinhead. If this slightly opened, you know, you got what looks to be a ripped away stomach area, but I do like the offsetting strapping, that it's not symmetrical on either side. The hand, and funny enough, I talk about the hand. The hand is about the only thing that looks like it's remained flesh on this one arm, as the rest of the arm has just been ripped away, exposing the tendons and bones underneath here. And it looks like there's a lot keeping this guy together, as there's this kind of harness brace that's been added to his arm here. I love the fact that the hand is a separate piece, that it just looks like it's barely holding on. Like it's got wires and stuff keeping everything together for fear that the hand is going to come right off. Yeah, there's a lot to look at on this guy, and he really is super impressive. As you could probably imagine, though, by the nature of the way he is kind of, everything's coming together on him, he's a little limited when it comes to his posability. Primarily, his head is on a hinge, but for everything that's happening up here, I would not even entertain the idea of trying to rotate that for fear that this is going to snap the arms off or, again, break this off. I've seen a couple of videos where this piece has been missing on some of the figures that people have been reviewing. I hope, if my very best, to try to keep this all intact. So again, if I'm going to ever bag these away, I'm going to try to deconstruct Agonistes as best as I can so that there's nothing really that's going to break on them. Primarily this arm and primarily these arms on the back are things of which I'm going to be very careful of if I ever bag this guy back away. Really, for such the sight that he is, and really for that matter, such the sight that the other Tortured Souls have been as well, these are figures definitely I would like to put on display. So again, you've got the articulation in the head. I really wouldn't even entertain the idea of rotating. It's not something I would just say, well, heed caution, I would say, rotating the head. The arms rotate, as well as this arm right here. You got the forearm swivel on this side, as well as a hand swivel on this side. But then on this arm, you've got the hinge, and you've got a bend in the elbow. Why you would even want to try to bend an elbow for all the stuff that's happening on the arm area here just seems dangerous. Why would you put a hinge right there on something that, as contraptioned up and harnessed up as it is, I just feel like that's asking trouble by trying to make you then bend the elbow. So you can bend the elbow if you so wish. I would probably stay clear of it myself. The hand rotates on a individual peg, and again, while rotating it, you do see that it starts stressing this little string or this little strand of wiring attached to the hand. So rotate it at some discretion. Don't be overly zealous with rotating the hand. It doesn't seem to have anything in the waist. He does have articulation forward and back on the legs. And it doesn't seem like that's really about it. That's about all he has. Where he misses, unfortunately, on posability, one could certainly say he more than makes up for it on sculpt. Despite being tortured, I'm sorry I had to go that route. Despite being tortured by limited posability, Agonistes more than makes up for it with a fantastic sculpt. I love the additional tendril, the robotic arms that protrude out from the back of his torso that adore this beautiful stretched out flesh face. It's a glorious, gruesome sight and a fantastic example of some of the stuff that McFarlane was churning out back in the day. It's not something that he would, I think, risk doing nowadays. The idea of a gruesome, tortured creature, and I think something that McFarlane would want to get back into. He's really more into the game of, Walking Dead and properties and movie, franchises and stuff like that. I'd love to see him kind of go back and eventually give us Tortured Souls again. Like, this is one of my favorite lines from McFarlane, and it's really a surprise that it's taken me this long to review the line. Agonistes, not one of my favorites, but I would say he definitely has merits to him, one of which being that beautiful stretched face across the arms here. Today we were having a look in this spooky video, and continuing a look actually at the McFarlane toys. This was the Tortured Soul line. This is Tortured Soul Series 1, and this was Figure 1, Agonistes. If you like this video, guys, and certainly want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit that little subscribe button. Hit that little subscribe button down below. You won't miss a beat when it comes to future videos. And of course, speaking of future videos, there's more Clive Barker Tortured Soul videos heading your way, as there's still another 3 figures that we're going to be looking at. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, as you always do. I'll see you next time.